Hi, I'm Nadia and I'm the Yogi.
And I'm Michelle and I'm the Blonde.
And this is the Yogi and the Blonde podcast.
In this podcast, we offer guidance,
Motivation,
education,
and inspiration
to help you adopt healthy habits you can sustain for life.
If you enjoy the podcast and would like further information,
head over to our Instagram or YouTube pages.
You can find the links in the bio. Welcome to today's episode. Today's episode is about eating healthy on a budget. So today though we are going to be talking a lot more about vegetables and fruit more than as grocery shopping in and all, just because we've noticed we noticed the prices, everything going up. It's been quite crazy, and it's across the world. It's not just in New Zealand, even talking with family, myself in Canada, and I think yourself in the UK as well, Michelle, hasn't it?
Yeah. The cost of fresh produce is going up globally for various reasons in different parts of the world.
Yeah, and so it makes it a bit hard to eat healthy, to make sure we're getting our good nutrients. We get so much nutrients from our fruit and vegetables, nutrients in our minerals, in our vitamins, just everything that helps, and our gut health. This is why we're all talking about this, is because of the 30 plant challenge for the week. So a diverse 30 plants for the week. And today is just focused on that fruit and veg part. And one thing we talked a little bit about, Michelle, is the unprocessed and processed, did we? Processed foods, and there's different types of processed and ultra processed. So like quite highly processed, that's like, think about fast food, that kind of process, or in a box, that kind of thing. And Michelle's done some research on this because she's our nutrition guru, and she's going to explain a little bit about processed and unprocessed.
I like being called a guru. Makes me Yeah, I wanted to just talk about this. If you have listened to our bonus podcast that we recorded about our gut health challenge, we kind of talked a little bit about processed food, and we said that we would kind of expand on that. So I think there is kind of this misconception that if something is processed, then it means that it is unhealthy. And processed food kind of gets a bit of a bad rap. And if you said to somebody about processed food, instantly they're going to have a negative thought and a negative reaction. So I just wanted to kind of explain that if something is processed, it does not mean that it is unhealthy. So
Michelle, can you clarify on that? Because when I think processed, because that's the thing, is that we need to know the difference of what's processed and what's ultra processed. It's ultra processed, it's called, right?
Yeah. So there is a global classification system for how foods are viewed, ranging from very minimally processed to ultra processed. So generally, when we think of processed foods as being bad, what we actually mean is ultra processed foods are bad. So I'm going to talk through the different classifications, because actually pretty much every single piece of food that you put into your mouth has been processed in some way. If you have a fruit tree in your garden and you walk to that tree and you pick the fruit from the tree and eat it, obviously no processing has taken place. You have picked it from there. Or if you pick your herbs from your garden and you put them in your mango and basil smoothie, then that nothing has happened to that. But if you are buying something, generally it has gone through some form of processing, whether that be that it's been washed, whether it's been that it has been chopped, cleaned in water. This is still considered to be processing. So at the lower end of our scale, so the system, the food classification system is NOVA, N-O-V-A. So at the top of the scale, number one, you've got your very minimally processed foods. So this would be things like your veg, your fruit that you buy in the supermarkets, not that you pick from your garden, your grains, your beans, your nuts. Those things are pretty much whole foods, but they have gone through some level of processing to take it from its natural state to what you purchase and buy in your supermarket or your store. So something has happened to it, but that product is still very healthy. It's still considered a whole food. It has been very minimally processed. On the next level, you've got what's considered your processed culinary foods. So things like olive oil, maple syrup. I know that you love maple syrup, and that's something that you weren't too sure about because it is actually a very natural product. But of course, that's not how it comes out of the ground or off of a tree.
It's off of a tree.
Something has happened to it.
It's off of a tree.
I don't even know.
What was it? I'll explain it to you.
Showed me where pineapples came from. I thought they grew on trees, but I think pineapples come out of the ground.
No, they come out of the ground. Did you not know that?
I had no idea. I was like 35 years old when I learned that. So
yeah, no, maple syrup comes from a maple tree, and you tap the tree and sweet water comes out of it, and then from there they boil it down to make the maple, because it's called the sugar cabin. Yeah, when you make the maple syrup. Yeah. So you want to make sure you get pure stuff.
A magic tree.
Well, it's the same thing as miso. Miso paste is really good for you, but that is a form of process. But like you're saying, a little bit, it's a healthier process than.
So that would also fall into the category 2, which is your kind of more culinary processed foods. Salt, for example, would also be in that category. So again, we're still looking at food that's considered healthy, but it has gone through more processing than your foods in category 1. Group 3 is your more typically processed foods, where things have started to be added to your foods from 1 and 2. So bread is a great example. So you've got bread, which is made up of lots of ingredients from your category 1, and then it's been cooked or baked by adding salt, by adding yeast, by adding other things that you might find in category 2. And then that makes category 3. So you've got your bread, you've got the fruits.
Would pasta be that?
Fruit and syrup. Yes, pasta would be that. So food that doesn't exist, but is made from ingredients in categories 1.
So from 2. The whole foods.
Yes.
Into that.
Using the culinary foods, it becomes a processed food. So yes, your pastas. Your
would that be, the salad that I gave you? And you said that was like restaurant quality. So thank you. That was a very, very sweet compliment.
The recipe guru. Yes.
So the dressing for that is a bunch of items. So one would have been a miso paste. It would have been lemon juice, some, I think, olive oil. I can't remember everything off the top of my head, to be honest, off the top of my head. So would that be a processed culinary type of food then?
Yes.
So doing that, we could still claim the miso paste, the fresh squeezed lemon, the whatever else I had in there. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you could claim that all of those.
Yeah, category 1 or 2. Easy. Okay. Yeah. So your category 3 is obviously category 1 foods, things added to them to make something.
So like a muffin.
Depends what's in your muffin. So that brings me nicely on to the top category, which is your ultra processed foods. So these are the foods that actually barely have anything of category 1 in them. So this is where you look at your ingredients. You start to see a load of words that you don't know what they are, like hydrolyzed whatever and bicarbonate
this and fructose that.
High fructose corn syrup. Like, you start to see all of these things and you're like, what the hell is this? This is a science lab experiment. You actually have very little actual food that you would find in your category 1. You've had so much stuff added to it that it actually barely really resembles food. And sadly, this does kind of make up the majority of some people's diets, food where we actually don't actually have that much actual real food. So things that would fall into this category are things like your sugary carbonated drinks, your energy drinks, packaged sweet unsavory foods. So your crisps, which I love crisps, you know, they have potatoes and they have salt and sea salt and whatever. You know, you can get fancier ones, but a lot of the times the cheaper packages, you've got all sorts of flavorings and stabilizers and bulking agents and other things added, and it starts to become a bit like,
I
how much
want
potato is in this?
I am going to, there is a New Zealand brand. Oh, I'm so good with looking at the package and I can see it, but the name never sticks through. But looking at the one, I buy it because I know it's gluten free.
Not kettle
And
chips, is it?
no, it's not kettle chips.
Oh,
It's
I
not
love
kettle.
those. Oh,
Yeah, but they've got the crisp bite like that, like you know that nice.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but anyways, literally, I think it's one of the cleanest chips I've seen, crisps or chips or whatever you call it, depending where you are in the world. In Canada, we call them chips. So, um,
Mm,
yeah.
crisps all the
So
way.
it's I'll have to take a photo of the back of the ingredients and send that through to you because I think you'll be like, "Ooh, I might change your mind." Because you can also
Mm.
get the Kumar ones as well. They got Kumar
Yes,
ones and
yeah.
stuff. So
You can get vegetable chips. So, and this is where it starts to become important to look at ingredients and see what actually is in your product.
yeah,
Because, you know, marketing, it might say, oh, yeah, this is really good. And then you look on the back and it's like, I don't know half of these things.
yeah.
So, and you know, I love crisps, just saying. But when you said about muffins, so, you know, you can get those boxes of cake mix where you put it into the bowl and you add
That's
water
ultra
or
processed, isn't
something.
it?
That is ultra processed. What is that? What is it? It's just some things. You put that and you can make muffins out of that. So
Yeah.
it depends. I used to make a bran muffin for my partner. So that was bran flour and other things. So, you know, this is all category 1, category 2 stuff. So you can make a healthier muffin or you can buy a packet of
Yeah.
powder and add something to it and it magically becomes a muffin. So,
Yeah.
you know, there are different levels when it comes to muffins.
So that would be like empty nutritious calories, right? That would be like empty calories. They would be
I mean,
no nutrition
it's
in them.
it's calories, but you are lacking in nutrition because you haven't got many whole foods in there. And
Yeah.
in our whole foods, the food that's in its natural state, that's when you're getting the most of your vitamins and your minerals. When
Yeah.
that's been fried away and dehydrated and hydrolyzed and whatever stuff, you're kind of losing that. So yeah, you're eating calories, you're eating energy. Generally, you're adding fat, they've got added sugar, they've got added salt, and
Yeah.
you're not really getting anything that good out of it unless they have fortified it with vitamins. And there are some breakfast cereals that do this. And actually, breakfast cereals are a bit of a contentious topic in terms of where they sit in the 4 categories because some of them are super sugary. I remember we used to have one back in the UK. It was called oh no, it's called like Lucky Charms.
Yes, we had that. That
Lucky
was in the
Charms.
Canada
And it was like they were like bright green and you had little bits of marshmallow and
marshmallow.
like
Yeah.
other random things like God knows what that derives from. Like that's just some made up stuff with some luminous green color
Yeah.
added
Yeah. Yeah.
into
It's all
them.
artificial. All
So that
artificial.
that would probably be considered a category 4. But then you have cereals like Wheat Bix. We have one called shredded wheat. Whereas these things are much more grain based. They haven't had much done to them. They haven't had much added. And what I've noticed a lot, because my stepson eats a lot of cereal, you can buy them where they have fortified them with the vitamins and minerals that they must be losing. So cereals sit somewhere in between there. And again, it depends on what type of cereal it is. So
I was
go on.
listening to a podcast of Jay Shetty interviewing Dr. Mark Heyman, and he has done a study and where because they were talking about processed and unprocessed foods and that difference, and that's where I learned about the meso paste. It is a processed food, but it's a healthy processed food. And I was like, oh, I didn't really think about that. And he spoke about if your diet is 10% of if it's more than 10% of ultra processed foods, your life expectancy is a lot shorter.
Wow. Because actually there are a lot of people, and the way society is set up, where you would be eating way more than 10% of ultra processed foods. Absolutely. So that's quite terrifying.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's not a big percentage, but you think about it. Well, your body's like a car. Do you put crap fuel in your car? Do you put, processed fuel or petrol in your car? No, like whatever. Like if you've got a sports car, you have to have like the most high quality fuel in it. So your body's the same way, right? So if you're adding all this stuff that's ultra processed, then how do you expect your body to work, really?
Yeah.
Especially if it already has issues like myself with the kidney disease, perimenopause. My body's out of whack like you wouldn't believe. So if I'm feeding it all this ultra processed stuff, like you look at various fast foods and lots of pizzas and burgers and, oils, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. If it's lacking in the category 1 foods, then yeah. So, and I don't want this messaging to come across as avoid all ultra processed foods, be terrified of them, because I've admitted to you, I love crisps. Do I eat crisps every day? No. Do I eat crisps on occasion as a treat? Yes. Do I eat chocolate every day? Oh no, yeah, I would if I had it. So does raw cacao powder count? Okay, no. That's a bad example.
But the thing is,
have these foods as a treat.
Raw cacao is nutrients. It's got good nutrients. There's good antioxidants. So that's not a bad thing, because then that means I'm guilty as well, because I have raw cacao in my smoothies at times and stuff like that. That means I'm guilty, but no.
But that would be a category 1 or 2 food.
Which
I'm
is
about chocolate, like sweet, yummy
milk chocolate and pear milk and O. Henry and all of that stuff, Snickers and Mars. So
not to be scared of them, enjoy them, but like I said, keep it lower than 10%. Enjoy them as a treat food, but do not have your vast majority of your diet made up with these foods. Stick to the processed, but the more minimally processed foods. But don't be scared of processed. As a term, it's the ultra processed.
Okay, now let's move on. Let's move on to frozen and canned. So I do a lot of cooking during the week with frozen because it's quick, it's easy, and with the inflation of the vegetables going up, it's a lot more cost effective. And just so people are aware that frozen food sometimes, especially depending on how it's frozen, if it's snap frozen, it will be a lot more nutrients, and it'll probably better nutrients than buying vegetables at the grocery store, because at the grocery store, they are not picked when they are ripe, when they have the best nutrients. They're picked before that. So if they're snap frozen, that means they're picked at that right time and snap frozen. Now, Michelle, you've done some looking into that, and you're going to talk us through a bit about the frozen and canned. But first and foremost, share with us about your cauliflower experience. This is why we created this podcast today about it.
Yeah. So Nadia and I have been working on recipes together, and one of the ingredients in the recipe was cauliflower. So I went to the supermarket, went to buy cauliflower. It was $8 for a cauliflower. And I was like, and I'll tell you what, they didn't even look that good. They looked a bit sickly, a bit pale, and I was like, I am not spending $8 on a cauliflower. That is just absolutely obscene. So I got frozen cauliflower instead. I think it ended up being $5 a kilo. And I was able to use that rather than $8 for however much, 200 grams, sickly, wilting, sad cauliflower. So sad. Yeah, I'm sad and expensive. No one's going to want to buy me. So that I guess kind of spurred this whole podcast, really, because we had this conversation and then we were like, wow, that's just absolutely obscene. But again, I think there is a misconception that frozen and canned foods aren't as good as the fresh. And Nadia is absolutely right. When you're buying it from a supermarket, it's usually had to travel from somewhere. Like you said, they're not picked when they're at the right time because they have to take into the travel time to account. So you're losing your nutrients. The more it's out of the ground, the more you're losing the nutrients. So with the snap frozen stuff, it's picked when it's good and full of nutrients, it's frozen, and then you buy it. And then when you defrost it and eat it, it's really nutrient dense. So frozen, if you've got a freezer and you've got the space to store the veggies, is a really good option. And that again would fall into the category of processed foods, because the stuff that you buy in the bag has generally been cut, chopped, peeled, cleaned. They don't look like that when they're in the ground. So
Yeah.
processed, but a really convenient and cheap and nutrient dense option.
Yeah. And the other option is canned, but canned is even more processed, isn't it? Some of it can be quite ultra processed because they're adding things like preservatives and sugars and salts to help preserve it, and depending on the juices and the sauces, right, Michelle?
Absolutely. So yeah, so canned tomatoes. I buy canned tomatoes as a staple. I keep spares of them in my cupboard because they're a great base for so many things. So many of the dishes I make are canned tomato based. They're amazing. But not all canned tomatoes are created equally, because some of them have had things added to them, sugars, salts, flavorings. So yeah, when you're looking at the things, you want to look at the ingredients list again to see what has been added. And you just want to check that it is just tomatoes that have been crushed up and put in a can. And I think the same goes with fruits. Like you said, sometimes quite sugary syrups are added, and it's meant to be for the flavor and make it sweet and almost like a dessert, but it's pretty processed, made up stuff that they're kind of storing these fruits in. So you want to be looking, if you're going to buy canned foods, you want to be looking for things that are stored either in water, spring water, or the natural juice of the fruit. For example, we buy pineapple, which is stored in its own juice, but there are options that you can buy that are stored in syrup.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're going the canned route, just be careful what you're buying, and that you're not including heaps of other stuff as well.
Yeah, because I'm the same as you. The only things I've got canned in my pantry is tomatoes. I will have things like beans, lentils, that kind of stuff. So it's a great go-to option for during the week, right? When we're lacking on time, going from work to this, and if you've got kids and you got sports and you got that, and you want to still have that nutrients, we just got to make sure that it's not all the time, making sure it gets swapped and stuff, and just being prepared that way. Now, going from that, is the second option is farm to door, isn't it? Yeah, farm to door. And I have done a bit of research on that, because I've got a friend who does from one that's called Wonky Box. And this is one I am actually going to try myself personally. And I also come across an article someone had done. And these are all these suggestions that we're talking about here is New Zealand based. So I'm sure if you did, anybody across in any other countries, you do some Googling, you will find, and it's about testing and finding what you are looking for. So, and this journalist was looking for, she had different things of like best value and sustainability. So just saying on how much you want to spend, also with the courier, how much, because you're going to be charged that. And some of them go directly from the farm to your door. And others also have a grocery shop. A grocery shop, so you get options to buy different things as well. And depending what you're looking for, if you want fruit, veg, or you're just wanting veg, there was one that I am also gonna do is Clevedon Herbs and Produce. They were best for fresh homegrown grains. I love my grains. I'm a big one for grains that help support the liver and everything like that. So I love doing that. Then there's even one for organic, if you're looking for organic vegetables, and that was Ubi. She had a big list here. And what I'll do is I will share that link for those that are New Zealand based. So then you can see what works for you. But what was interesting is she didn't have wonky box in there. I think they might be quite fairly new, but the whole reason why I liked Wonky Box is because they go seasonal. So all of them went seasonal, right? When I was looking through the different ones that this journalist had suggested, and I was looking around and doing some research, they all have seasonal, which is great to see. Now, the ones that were grocery store based, some of them weren't seasonal. So, where you can buy like your breads and butters and various things for your grocery. So, you can do all your grocery online. That's also an option if you're tight on time. Now, what I liked about the Wonky Box, going back to that, is they like to keep it simple. You can either do a veggie box or a fruit and veg box. I personally would just do a veggie box because anything fruit wise is I buy frozen berries, mango, and that's pretty much it. And I might have an apple and I might get some green bananas. I like green bananas, but for my smoothies, there actually helps with your insulin levels as well. But Wonky Box, what it is they keep it basic. They go to the farmers, and what is all about is about food wastage. There is so much food wastage because it doesn't look pretty. And that's pretty sad, the fact that people are not getting fresh vegetables because it doesn't look pretty. My friend even said when she's doing Wonky Box, she says that it tastes better. It tastes better. It tastes like it's actually got taste. And I grew up with my parents had a huge veggie garden and greenhouse. So I grew up with like fresh vegetables. So I get that. And and that's where we get the flavors and the nutrients. So I love how they're working on bringing down the waste. So we're not sponsors for Wonky Box. I just really like that. And I'm actually currently dog sitting. So once I'm back in my home, I'm going to try Wonky Box and see. And what's quite fun is that it makes you whatever you're going to get, you're going to know about a week beforehand. So that just makes you start to be creative in what you're going to get, right? I'm going to do that one and the cleaved in herbs and produce because I like the greens. I like, if I'm going to support, and that's a small family home operated farm. So I want to support something local. So I like both of those as well. Now, the other thing I didn't share with you, Michelle, and I thought I'd share this because I also do this at times, is I go to farmers market because I like going from farmers market as well. When I lived in Takapuna, I was there every week. I had my certain stalls that I went to and got, and that's where I would get my sprouts as well, everything like that. And it's something that's making me think, by us doing this podcast is making me think I need to get back into my roots that way as well, so I can support the local community. And that's the other thing you're thinking about, looking at supporting the local farmers rather than overseas. Support your economy as well while you're doing that, and that's going to save you money. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about, which is again about going from farm to door, is Michelle. I was telling Michelle about there is various communities through the world, and there's just a few of them. I think there's about 6 or 5 where it's called the Blue Zone. Some of you guys will know about the Blue Zone, and the Blue Zone, they do seasonal eating. So there's a lot of studies, like the National Geographic have done a lot of studies in the Blue Zone, and there's a lot of guys that I follow, like I've mentioned one, which is Dr. Mark Heyman. He's done some studies with Blue Zone, and these are studies of the oldest people in the world, where they get over 100 years old, and they're like 90 years old, still riding their bike. They're very healthy, and it's places like Okinawa.
Quality of life.
Yeah, it's about how you live your life, right? They're not sitting in front of the TV. They don't have everything that's processed and made. And places like Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy. So it's an island off of Italy. Nicoya, Costa Rica. And there's one in California called Loma Linda, California. These people are also very plant-based. Don't get me wrong, they eat about 5 to 10% of their food is meat, but they are very plant-based. These people like grow their own gardens, they're farmers, they're fishermen. So they gather and hunt. They make things from scratch. They have their own grain where they make their own bread from scratch. So it's kind of, if you think about it, it's into that culinary processed food that you're talking about, Michelle, but they're making it from home, from themselves. They're growing it, and or they bought it off of a neighbor who grows it, or however it works that way. So it's quite fascinating. And these people are living up to over 100 years old. There's like 102, 104. Imagine that. And I've seen some photos and videos of this, looking at some TED talks and documentaries, and they look amazing for that age. They look bloody amazing. And I'm like, I want to live in that kind of way. And this is like why it's like making me think I need to tap into back of what I was doing before, going to the farmer's market, doing that extra step. Plus, it's getting me out, it's getting me walking. So then I'm also burning my natural movement and quality of my calories, tapping into my NEAT process.
Yeah.
So that's any questions about that, Michelle? Yeah,
I
because I
had never
know.
heard of the blue zone stuff, and I find it fascinating, and I love that that kind of stuff exists. I mean, I think, we're always trying to make our lives easier.
Hmm.
Um, and but back in the day,
Yeah,
we didn't have these factories churning out this food so quickly, and people did used to make all of their own stuff, and did rely on things being grown. We take it for granted now that you can just go and buy bananas all year round, even though it's not something that grows all year round in this country or wherever.
yeah,
We have access to anything that we want all the time. And I guess, we've kind of moved so far away from doing what we can with what we have at that time.
yeah.
But that's how it always used to be. And yeah, it's quite lovely to hear that stuff like that still happens
Yeah, and
in
it's
the world.
and it makes you think, we are so processed, and it's great to see all the technology and everything that in what's come about, and seeing, some things that would have killed people way back, 20, 30 years ago. They know it's not something to worry about anymore. But at the same time, we've lost that connection to Mother Earth, to how to live simply. And this is what these guys do, as they live simply, and they've got, the basic things of being social. And what was fascinating as well, another thing about it, is that they ate from smaller plates. If you look at like the plates that you get nowadays are quite big, because it's always about overindulging. Why? So another way to help as well is to buy smaller plates, because that's
Yeah.
what we should be eating as well.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's it's fascinating when doing a bit of this research for these podcasts and just what you learn, and it makes you kind of go, I'm going to start changing some things, and I'm looking forward to trying this wonky box, and and getting my greens and whatever greens they're growing, of whatever time of the year it'll be different, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
this is going to be a fun thing to bring into play as well.
Yeah. But I hope what we've also been able to communicate in this podcast is that even if you live a lifestyle where you don't have time to make things from scratch, or you don't have the finances to be able to go to a farmer's market and buy your food, or you don't have the time to do so, hopefully we've been able to give alternative options where you can still eat well and healthily, within a tighter budget and also within a tighter time scale. We were actually saying how both of us, we have frozen stir fries most of the time, because you can come home, you can defrost your veggies, cook them up with, I would most of the time do chicken or prawns, and you've got yourself a really lovely, quick, healthy lunch. So, we eat frozen all the time. So hopefully we've shown that there are options, and there are different ways that you can still incorporate all of this nice, healthy food,
and I think
depending on your lifestyle.
And I think that's a good balance to have fresh and frozen, like having the balance between the two is a great thing. And I think that brings a bit more balance within yourself, within just your gut health as well, right? Because this is what it's all about, our gut health.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Having the nutrients in us, not blasted away and toned down by high fructose corn syrup or whatever rubbish gets added to foods these days. So
yeah, and that's right. So those ultra processed.
Yeah.
Well, that's us for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Please comment down below whatever, if you're listening to Spotify or YouTube. Otherwise, have a fabulous one. Enjoy if you're doing the challenge. Good luck. Don't be afraid to reach out to us, share, or even if you've got any questions or concerns. That's it for today. Otherwise, have a fabulous day and ciao. Bye.
Bye. If you have enjoyed listening to our podcast today
and want to hear more, please subscribe using the button below.